Are you team loose powder, pressed powder, or completely confused about the difference? Let's talk about it today. Hey everyone, welcome back to the What Is series. It has been a hot minute, but we are back. In case you forgot, in this series we break down popular makeup, hair, and skincare questions in quick, easy to follow videos. In today's episode, we'll be diving into the key differences between loose powders and pressed powders, the pros and cons of each, and whether or not you really need both in your makeup bag. Let's go. So let's get started by understanding what powders are used for in general, regardless of whether they're pressed or loose, because that's going to give us the foundation for understanding pretty much everything else. So there are really 5 main reasons why we reach for them as makeup artists. The primary reason that powders are used, it's a set, liquid, or cream makeup like foundation and concealer, right? When you set a cream or a liquid with a powder, it essentially blocks that product from transferring, smudging, or creasing. This will help your makeup last significantly longer, especially in areas which are prone to movement, like under the eyes or around the mouth. Another reason that many people use powder is to absorb excess oil and to mattify the skin. This is especially useful for people with oily or combination skin types because oil will actually break down and separate makeup throughout the day. A powder will pretty much stop that from happening, or at the very least make it happen much less depending on how oily your skin actually is. The third reason people use it is for skin blurring. Powders minimize the appearance of pores and create a smooth, even texture on the skin. Some powders even have light reflecting properties that give the skin a really soft, focused effect instead of a matte effect, almost like the Paris filter on Instagram does. The fourth reason is for adding coverage. So some pressed powders are actually these guys. They are foundation powder hybrids, right? And they can actually add extra coverage to your base makeup, or they can be used completely on their own for a nice, like lightweight, natural feel. And then, of course, the final reason is for midday touch-ups, right? It really is a perfect product to reduce shine and just refresh your look overall throughout the day. So now that you've got a good idea of why powders are used in general, let's talk about why you might want to reach for a loose powder over a pressed powder. So one of the biggest perks of loose powder is that it is super finely milled, usually much more than a pressed powder. Of course, how finely milled it is very dependent on the actual product and how it's made and the brand and what it's specifically made to do and what it's for. Some powders are more finely milled than others. But regardless of that, that blanket statement that loose powders are more finely milled than pressed powders is absolutely true. So in general, you're going to get a finer consistency with this over this. So because loose powders are so lightweight, you do have total control over how much you pick up and how much you put down, which means you can really customize it to your needs, right? So for example, if you're setting under your eyes and you want a light touch, especially if you're worried about fine lines, wrinkles, if you have dry skin, you can just use a small amount for a soft finish. But if you're going for a more dramatic look like baking your makeup, if you're someone that likes to bake, you can easily build it up for that full-on locked-in effect. So it's super versatile, which is why so many people swear by loose powders. Pressed powder, on the other hand, is, well, exactly what it sounds like. It is powder that is pressed into a compact. It's still smooth, but it's a little denser than loose powder, which isn't actually a bad thing because it makes it super convenient and easy to use, especially when you're on the go. One of the great things about pressed powder is that it's much less messy compared to loose powder. You don't have to worry about it spilling everywhere, which really makes it perfect for tossing in your bag and touching up throughout the day. Pressed powder is also really versatile because it can do more than just set your makeup. Depending on the formula and its specific purpose, pressed powder can add extra coverage. This makes it a great option if you want to quickly even out your skin tone and wear it on its own. But you can also use it over a liquid foundation to give your makeup a little coverage boost, a little extra coverage. Like with any product though, there's pros and cons, right? There's a bit of a balance when it comes to using pressed powders because they're denser. And because they're denser, it's easier to apply too much and it's easier to end up with a really cakey look, especially if you're not using the right tools or techniques. And while you can use pressed powders as foundations for sure, it may not be the best option for certain skin types like mature skin or dry skin because it can sometimes emphasize texture, it can really highlight wrinkles, and it can be too drying for a lot of people as well. All right, so now that you know the differences between pressed and loose, another common question is whether or not you should buy a translucent powder or a powder with pigment. You can find both in loose and in pressed form. So translucent powders, right, like this one, are basically your go-to for setting makeup without adding any color. They're designed to be sheer and lightweight, so they work on pretty much every skin tone without altering the shade of your foundation or concealer. Plus, translucent is amazing for techniques like baking because they brighten without looking heavy. Okay, it really is like super lightweight. It does all of the things powder has to do without adding coverage, which could be exactly what you're looking for. On the other hand, colored powders, which are sometimes also called tinted or tone matching powders, are great if you are looking for a little more coverage. They usually come in a range of shades to match your skin tone, so they can help even out your complexion or even add some warmth if your foundation's looking a little too light. Or on the contrary, they can brighten up areas of the face, like the center of the face if you want. So they definitely have their advantages as well. The biggest thing to keep in mind when choosing the right powder product for you is your end goal. If you're happy with the coverage that your foundation gives you, a translucent powder will keep things in place without changing the color. But if you're looking for that little extra something, right? A little more coverage, a tonal change, warmth, maybe some brightness in the center of the face, colored powders might be your best friend. Or you can do what I do and combine them both together and use them both, but for different reasons. So that brings me to my end question. Do you need both loose and pressed powders? The short answer is that it depends on your routine. Loose powder is pretty much a must-have. Even if you don't use it all over your face, it really is perfect for setting key areas, blurring pores, keeping everything smooth and crease-free. Pressed powders, on the other hand, are really handy when you're on the go. It's great for quick touch-ups, and it can even work as a light coverage base if you do want to skip your liquid foundation. You just want to throw something on real quick, run out the door. A pressed powder is kind of awesome for that. So do you need both? Not necessarily, but having both gives you options. Personally, I love using loose powders at home to set my makeup and pressed powders for midday touch-ups. It's all about what works for you and your routine. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful. If you want to learn the best ways to apply loose and pressed powders, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to make a how-to video for my Wednesday series where I can walk you through the tools, the techniques, step by step on how to get the most out of these products. And I can even give you some of my favorites because I have tried them all, let me tell you. Just let me know if that's something that you would like to see. This video's over.